this application cycle to be
No, next
like
one,
tough.
is it going to be worse than this one? Because this one was the toughest application. By the way, people who got rejected from Ivies, welcome to the toughest application season ever.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, it's because my like diploma just keeps getting more and more valuable.
Yeah, I feel
more and
that.
more
I
elite.
feel that.
I'm like, wow, it's like watching a stock portfolio rise. But in
Right,
terms,
let's not focus too much on this in this stream.
sorry, no, I should not have. That's really not a good way of framing it, actually, because it's built upon a lot of.
Kale's just shaking his head like, these guys. Now our Ivy Rejection Day stream is a bunch of Ivy grads.
No, okay, but actually, in terms of the data, I believe one of the biggest reasons is like everyone going test optional, and so it depends on how that like pans out in the future. And it looks like schools will probably be test optional like next year, which will mean it's like just as tough.
Not all of them. We found some like Florida schools that are like getting
the Florida one was
bringing
specifically
schools back.
because like the state government of Florida, as part of their, I'm trying to think of how I should put this on here. They're not as
judgment coming.
I'm trying to think of a good way of phrasing this, but basically the like state government of Florida did not want to do test optional just because of COVID for like reasons, which is why like Florida was not test optional and they were one of the few, but like everyone else is like pretty much test optional. And because COVID's just not over and like people aren't like all testing now, like I don't see it really changing, although it could. Like I know like last time I checked, California didn't have any plans like put out tests, and schools are just not gonna like California just reject everyone from California or whatever. So I imagine this will probably continue, in which case regarding admissions specifically, we will probably see more of like more people applying to these schools, in part because they are getting more selective and therefore more prestigious, and it's just like this negative feedback loop. And I don't know, I'm trying to think of also students taking time off, but I'm not quite sure how that would factor in. What do you think? I think it'll be bad.
I thought that a big driver of selectivity was going to be the fact that there are fewer spots because freshmen didn't show up, seniors didn't graduate, etc. But it turns out I was like wrong. Most of these schools, Yale included, accepted a normal number of students. It's just that they had crazy record we have the numbers, right? 52,000 applications or something. What is it, Hale?
Yale had 46,905 applicants this year and accepted 2,169, which is a normal acceptance pool, but just an completely abnormal applicant pool. There was a rise of 33%, a third from the year before, which is just momentous, precipitous, just like crazy. And a big part of that, unsustainable. And a big part of that is probably test optional, people feeling that it's one more barrier removed, which is great. It's great that people don't feel that there are barriers to applying. And that's going to continue again next year because of continued concerns about COVID and testing centers and all that. A lot of schools have put forth that in a post-COVID world, there will be a return to standardized tests and requiring them as part of the admissions profile.
We'll see, though, a lot of talk about how classist, potentially discriminatory standardized testing is because wealthier students have access to more test preparation resources and also can afford to take the test more times, travel to the test, take the test, which costs money, all that. It is possible that some schools may remain test optional even after COVID. Some may choose not to. I personally think the direction is going more test optional, which will increase access, which is a good thing. Like Hale said, ultimately, that more students can apply to schools, that more students will know more about schools, all that kind of stuff. But it does mean that acceptance rates will get more and more selective each year. That said, talking about rate of change, this year was way more competitive than last year or any other year on record. Way more. If next year is even more competitive than this year, which is possible, it is not going to be the same kind of leap. It may be a little bit more competitive or similarly competitive, but it's not going to be another 33% jump at these schools as it was this past year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll probably be pretty stable in the way that it had been stable in the past. I think it'll be probably a little more difficult next year, but as soon as things even out, I think we'll see a reduction, a kind of contraction in the applicant pool as time, maybe not a dramatic one, but just this increase of a third is just not going to continue. It's anomalous. There's no way you can continue to increase the number of applicants by 11,000 people every year.
You're making a rate of change argument, right?
Yeah.
If it keeps getting more selective, it will get more selective at a slower rate of acceleration.
But it'll still get worse and worse.
It probably will still get worse and worse. That's the trend line for the last 20 years. With the increase in applications this year, will waitlists be more difficult to get off of? I would not expect them to be. I would expect them to have waitlisted a similar amount of students to how they usually do. It seems a lot of these schools actually accepted the same number of students they usually do, despite my thinking that there would be fewer spots because people didn't graduate. I guess I was wrong. Yeah, Hale, do you have something to say?
Yeah, actually, and of course, I'm not an expert on how the admissions office are thinking right now, but I would expect that actually increased application volume will lead to more people getting in off the wait list, because there will be more people who have gotten in all over the place who need to choose one school. You can only attend one school, no matter how many you apply to. So
Good point.
Having that overlap of schools will mean that maybe more schools will be looking to fill more places. And I don't know if that's going to be the case, but that would be my expectation. I don't know how much that's going to change, but I would anticipate that waitlist motion is going to be more unpredictable this year, but also more prevalent.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And the fact that there's so much uncertainty around the whole process this year, and the fact that people applied to more schools than usual and more people applied to each school than usual means that, people are going to have a lot of acceptances they're sifting through, and yield rates may be a little bit lower at schools that don't have ED. At ED schools, then it's the whole thing's a little different. But a lot of the Ivies don't. Columbia has ED, Cornell has ED, Penn has ED, Brown has ED, and Harvard, Yale, and Princeton don't. So especially the non-ED schools, you can expect some probably generous wait lists. We'll see.